Well, hello, friends. My name is Sabrina, and I am a big fan of the BHC co-ops, and I'm here to tell you why. I lived at the Masala co-op on 8th and Marine starting in 2007 when I moved back to Boulder for a job at the University of Colorado. And I wanted to live really close to where I worked. I wanted to be so close to my office because I expected to be there a lot. I also really wanted to live somewhere that I could afford. And in Boulder, unless you're a millionaire, that's really a challenge, as I'm sure you all remember. So I searched for a BHC opening and found one at Masala. And although those were my only two criteria at the beginning, I gained so much more by living in a co-op for over 6 years. Some of the skills that I learned or ways that I grew as a person because of living at Masala, there are so many. I'm a process person and I actually love meetings. And so house meetings were never a problem for me, but I wasn't always at my best. I have this memory of another co-opper, Terry. She came to my door and she wanted to give me some feedback. So she gently asked if she could. She said, "You're the bulk food steward, and at every house meeting, you keep reminding us not to leave the basement messy. If we spilled granola or spilled rice, clean up after ourselves." She said, "The way that you're scolding us doesn't work for me. I'm not one of the people who's leaving a mess, and so I don't want to be scolded. Is there a different way that you could accomplish your goal?" I know this seems small, but this is just one of a zillion illustrations of how people lovingly communicate with each other and stay in relationship over time because we live in co-ops. I would argue that our social relationships, our sense of the commons, our sense of shared public space and shared public resources is fraying in these modern times. And co-ops teach us how to reach for each other and stay connected, even when things are challenging. There were lots and lots and lots and lots of moments when living in a co-op directly contributed to what I do for a living and my activism, my studies, and my employment. So, along with living in community, I also work in community. I am an educator at the University of Colorado Boulder. I teach about social justice, environmental activism, and community. Our field is actually called community studies. So it was just perfect that I lived in community. I always had a plethora of examples that were alive and happening and unfolding, and I could bring those directly into my classes, bring those into trainings and activities and games and concepts that I was practicing or putting to use at the co-op. I could also directly apply in my work life. And so maybe a specific example of this, it's pretty easy for me. I teach and practice consensus decision making and meeting facilitation at my job to young people who are in college. And of course, every single week at house meeting, I got to practice those things. But also another that's really important is conflict resolution. I got to learn how to be a mediator, how to work with a co-facilitator who's also mediating. I got to learn about some of the tricky and touchy things in community, like dating or falling in love with somebody you live with, or breaking up with someone you live with, or, we thought through my time at Masala about mental illness and to what extent we could help and support a co-opper who had pronounced needs. All of these things that we practiced and learned in community were immediately and directly relevant to what I do, not to mention sustainability. I learned about bike culture. I learned how to fix and make things. I learned how to build a chicken co-op. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I am grateful to my co-op years for all the many things that they gave me that I used and continue to use now in my profession as a social justice educator. I kind of just said that, but some others are we gardened, we raised our own vegetables, and I now raise my own flowers. And I love growing things and having a relationship with herbs and flowers and vegetables. And I also learned about sustainability and radical zero waste practices like dumpster diving. I continue to be involved with Boulder Food Rescue all these years after my time living in the co-op. And all the organizations kind of splintering off of the co-op or related to them, those all enriched me in innumerable ways. I would also add that I'm an active participant in voting and attending city council meetings and writing all the time to my elected officials. And I was able to find people who, like me, were engaged, shared some of my values, shared some of my political persuasions. It wasn't hard. You didn't have to look too far to find people to jump on the RTD bus with you and go down to Denver for a big rally. I always appreciated that friendship and camaraderie and accompaniment. And we also did really cool things. Like, here's a picture of us being interviewed by a news agency across the world who wanted to learn about co-ops. So we made them a meal at Ostara and invited them over. I made friendships at Masala that have lasted until now. You can see a picture of Jackie from a long time ago. And on the right, Jackie and Steve and Sarah and Lincoln and me now. We're still friends. We're still tight. I continue to benefit from these relationships with so many more people than are pictured here, people I met at the co-op. Living in community wasn't always easy, and it isn't for everyone, but I'll tell you what, now that I don't live in a co-op, my wife and I and our dog live in a home that we bought in unincorporated Boulder County. And I miss living in a co-op all the time, especially during the pandemic, especially when I feel dejected about the state of the world, especially when I feel lonely. Even people who are married can feel lonely, and I feel lonely sometimes because I'm a creature who really thrives by being connected and related to the other people from my species. I will wrap up by sharing a memory from our house. There are so many memories, but one is this. I remember when Jackie organized us to participate together in not one, but two triathlons, 2 years in a row. I don't run. I don't really swim long distances. These are not things that I would ever choose, but with the encouragement of a whole community, we all did it together. And we had such a blast. This is a picture of me finishing last. And I was so, so proud to finish last. Finishing it all was a huge accomplishment for me. I was proud to finish last and delighted that it happened that way because they made a human tunnel for me to run through. These are my Masala buddies encouraging me. I remember one of them coming to get me on a bicycle and riding alongside me just to push me to finish at the very end when I was tired. I think that was Sakura. So many lessons learned and so many people I love. I see Helen Kadich, I see Rachel Bronk, I see Nora Lachese, I see myself in the back row right under the sunshine eyeball. I am a richer, not in money, but in values, memories, friendships, and talents person for having lived in a BHC house. I'm eternally grateful for the BHC, which makes our community something special. Boulder would be a wasteland of wealth, affluence, privilege, and precision and straight lines and perfection if it weren't for the BHC. So thank you, BHC, for everything you've done for me. Bye.